Okay.
And that's the title of our thing. I'm not going to redo that piece. All the information in here is under a Creative Commons license, so you are welcome to use it however you'd like for the most part. Um, Go ahead. So again, general description, hopefully you read this before you came in, but we are just going to talk about all of these different things, ZTC, LTC, OER, XB12, burden-free, what they are, a little bit about where they came from and so on and so forth, but then, give you status updates for, basically January of 2026. Where are we at Rio Hondo College with these things? My name is Kevin Smith. I am our OER ZTC coordinator, newly appointed coordinator at Rio Hondo College. I'm also our OER liaison, and I work with the OER initiative. I'm one of the regional leads for that group as well. Mike, go ahead.
I'm Mike Gerbedian. I'm the Dean of Library and Learning Support Services. I'm the administrator over OER and ZTC initiatives. As I said in the last session, we are excited as the library to be part of these new initiatives because we've always been in the provision of free resources and services business.
I'll go. I'm Brian Young, full-time librarian and current committee chair of OER committee.
Good morning still. I'm Michelle Pilati. I am technically full-time psychology faculty at Rio Hondo, but I have not been there because I am running the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges Open Educational Resources Initiative. And I've also been unofficially leading our ZTC work. Welcome, everyone. We're really glad to have you here.
So we are all here, basically, the four of us as your kind of unofficial OER leadership group on this campus, ZTC leadership group. And so we're each gonna kind of piecemeal talk a little bit about what we do throughout this and on our parts, but feel free, reach out to us, throw questions in the chat. As we go, raise your hand, interrupt us. If last session is anything like this session, we're going to have ample time. So, feel free to interrupt us as we go. So we are going to start with some kind of the basics. What do all the abbreviations mean? What is it all? And then, like I said, we're going to spend some time with each of us talking a little bit about where we are at Rio. So, Brian,
All right, starting with some simple abbreviations and definitions. So as indicated in this session's title, there are a lot of abbreviations that we're going to be throwing around today. The first being ZTC, which stands for Zero Textbook Cost. Then there's LTC, which is Low Textbook Cost, and we'll tell you the differences between those. OER are Open Educational Resources, and XB12 is the Instructional Material Section Level Data Element, which Dean Garabedian will discuss in detail. All right, so some quick definitions. OER, or Open Educational Resources, are shareable and adaptable teaching materials, such as textbooks, course modules, and media that are free when digital and openly licensed. And this allows faculty members to adopt and adapt OER materials to make them more culturally relevant to Rio Hondo students. All right, zero textbook costs, or ZTC, refers to course sections or degree pathways with no textbook costs to the students. And because this is difficult to achieve sometimes, there's also low textbook costs, or LTC, sections with textbook costs under or equal to $30 before taxes. All right, so here's a diagram that shows how ZTC status can be achieved in courses by using either OER or resources in the public domain. You can also use openly available resources from the web, teacher and student created resources, and resources found in our library, such as course reserves, library database articles, and ebooks.
Brian, I wanted to interject here really quickly to point out that open educational resources are not the same thing, for example, as openly available resources or really any of these other things. And I think that's an important point. I'm Mike Garabedian again, and I'm going to talk about XB12. XB does not stand for anything. In our previous session, some of our participants, per my request, came up with some things that they might stand for, that XB might stand for. I like extremely boring. That was a nice one. But XB is just a part of the Chancellor's Office MIS data report that the college has to submit every year. So XB is like the course section data, and XB12 has to do with the cost of course materials. So we sometimes hear people referring to the XB12 process or the XB12 data as the ZTC process or the ZTC data element, but it's not really. It is the way by which we report ZTC to the Chancellor's Office, how many sections are ZTC, and it's also the way that we here on campus mark ZTC and LTC or not courses in the schedule, but we shouldn't confuse XB12 with specifically just ZTC, right? So this is a squares and rectangles sort of thing. So again, ZTC, like Brian said, is zero textbook costs. There's a few different ways to get to that. And so there's a few different codes in the XB12 data element that indicate how a course section gets there. Low textbook cost, that's anything $30 or less at Rio. And then everything else is if you have course materials that are over $30, and that's before taxes, then it's neither LTC nor ZTC. And just a reminder, $30 at Rio Hondo College for LTC. And another reminder, even though these abbreviations stand for textbook, this also refers to homework systems. So you'll see that interchangeably. Again, not all XB12 codes are ZTC. D and Y are not ZTC, but multiple XB12 codes indicate that a course section is ZTC. If you teach a course section and you have no course materials, then it's code A, no course material. So a lot of kinesiology and athletic courses, for example, are ZTC off the bat. If the cost of the materials is not passed on to students, say you're a counselor, you have a $100 textbook in your section, but the library gives out free copies, then that's ZTC XB12 code C. OER is E. Free digital material, like something that's published online and anybody can access, that's not OER, but it still counts as ZTC. It's free digital material. And then XB12 allows for a combination code. That's when you teach a course section where the material cost is not passed on to students and there's an OER element. So that's why it's the Boolean and or field right there. Here's where we're at XB12 status at Rio. XB12 data reporting is mandatory for all colleges, and via an agreement with the Rio Hondo College Faculty Association, it's also mandatory for all faculty members. So basically it goes like this. If you teach a course section, just one course section in a semester, then you have to submit the XB12 data for that course section. And as we just saw, that doesn't matter if you don't have a textbook. It doesn't matter if there's nothing that a student has to bring to the class or access for the class. If you teach a course section, you have to do this. Our current reporting rate for the first time we ever tried this back in winter 26 and spring 26 in October, we got a rate of 60 to 70% of all sections accounted for. We do need to get to 100% and close that 30 to 40% gap. IT Services is currently working on developing a banner-based system. The system that we have in place now was done sort of at the last minute. It's the best we could manage. It works pretty okay, but there's lots of opportunities for data entry errors. A banner-based system would obviate all of that. Basically, if you're a faculty member, you'd open up Banner and say, here are your course sections. Can you assign, or can you choose from a bunch of radio buttons which XB12 code it is? Faculty members may have to use the same reporting system that we did for winter 26 and spring 2026. That's a bummer because as I said, it is a little wonky. But hopefully that banner-based system will come online pretty soon because unless there's some sort of state legislative intervention in the future, this is required mandatory work for all faculty members going forward. If you taught a course in winter 26 or spring 26 and you didn't enter your XB12 data, you can still do it, even though the MIS report has already been submitted for that data. The form is at gorio.page/XB12. Once you're there, you're going to have to register first to use the form. It's really easy. You just use your Rio Hondo College email address and then a password of your own making, so long as it's just 8 letters or more. Do not use your Rio Hondo College email credential. If you want to know more about XB12, you can go to that link right there, riohondo.app/XB12/how-to guides with hyphens between the letters at the end there. That's also available via a link when you scan that QR code or go to gorio.page/XB12. The how-to guide link is at the top of that screen.
So I get to talk about where we are or where we think we are with respect to having ZTC pathways at Rio. Here we have a list of the associate degrees for transfer and then the local associate degrees that we have that are already at 0. So these are things that we got to 0 before we had any money to make those things happen. One of the really good things about this is that it means that we have a complete general education pathway at 0, so we can look at having other degrees at 0. Next slide, please. In addition to degrees, we have a bunch of certificates of achievement that are at 0 as well. Next slide, please. We have money to get certain pathways to 0, and here is a list of the pathways that we have already completed getting to 0 or are like literally in process getting there right now. Graphic art and design, AA, we have a faculty member who's working on a color theory textbook right now. Social justice studies, we have someone who has completed an introduction to LGBTQ plus studies textbook that's in its final stages of going public. And we have a faculty member who worked with humans to make the book work for him for Human Services and Contemporary Society. Next slide, please. So all of the California community colleges received at least $500,000 to work on ZTC pathways. There were funds that were given to the colleges outright, and then there was a phase of applying for money, and then there was an additional chunk of change that was just given outright. We have somewhere around $800,000 that we're working with. And one of the fortunate things we had happen is that we've had pathways that we were going to pay to get to 0 that got to 0 all on their own. So that was really exciting. The disciplines that we're currently focusing on that we have funds dedicated to right now are anthropology, history, and sociology. Now, those are the degrees. Within those degrees, there may be courses that are in other disciplines. So if you're in a discipline that teaches a course that's part of one of these degrees, then you would be someone who could be a candidate for funding. We were able to take to the board over the summer some faculty non-specific, so activity-specific funding that we can offer to faculty who are in these funded pathways wanting to do work. We also have other funds for these pathways for activities that might take more than these small amounts of funding. I don't know how we would not have a lot of money left over after we've completed what we have to complete. And so if you are in a discipline that is close to establishing ZTC pathways, or maybe you're not so close, but you think it's possible, come talk to us because we have the monies and we would like to see it happen. And one of the things that we don't yet know is we had all this money spread across the system. And what's going to happen is that by the time when everyone's supposed to be done, there's going to be a lot of new resources that we may be able to piggyback upon. Next slide, please. All right, I'm passing it off to Brian now. Mike's having too much fun with his transitions.
All right, thanks. Some OER committee updates. OER, we are a committee of Rio Hondo College Academic Senate, where we meet to discuss all things OER and ZTC, both locally and statewide, while encouraging and supporting faculty to adopt OER materials in their instruction. And we currently have some committee vacancies in the divisions of communications and languages, counseling, kinesiology, and we're looking for a dedicated arts and cultural programs rep as well. So if you're interested in joining our committee, please reach out to me or Kevin. Some committee updates from the last academic year include Kevin drafted 2 resolutions that were approved by the OER committee and presented to Academic Senate in the fall. The first calls for Senate to support the college's efforts to create sustainable ZTC degree and certificate pathways. Excuse me. The second resolution urges administration to consider ZTC status while scheduling for classes to ensure the availability of current ZTC pathways for students. I need a quick drink of water, excuse me. All right. Both resolutions were approved by Academic Senate, along with another to have LTC and ZTC courses be searchable in the schedule of classes. There's been a lot of discussion going back several years of the XB12 and ZTC data collection process, which Mike outlined, and it's good to see progress being made on that. Last summer, Kevin created a proposal for a formalized OER/ZTC program at Rio Hondo. The proposal outlined goals and objectives of a sustainable program, including institutional support, marketing efforts, funding commitment, and investment in a dedicated OER coordinator. The proposal was delivered to upper administration last semester, where it was approved along with the OER coordinator position. Interviews took place in December, and Kevin Smith was hired as our college's OER coordinator, which is great because we finally have a dedicated person here at Rio to push all of these efforts forward. In our last meeting, Kevin proposed language to define burden-free instructional materials locally at Rio and how the district can further support student access, which he'll talk about in a few minutes. Next slide, please. Okay. Want to briefly tell you about our OER and ZTC research guide. This is a LibGuide that I've maintained for several years. It's intended mainly for faculty who are interested in finding OER-related resources and information. It also contains XB12 reporting and committee information. And I'll go ahead and paste the link in the chat if you're interested in checking it out.
All right, so I think I'm lagging a little bit. Can you hear me okay? We good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right, so as my colleagues mentioned, I am the new OER ZTC coordinator, just starting next week, actually. But so what exactly does that mean? We're trying to figure that out, or at least I am. The job description had a whole bunch of stuff in it. And so how exactly the position will form, it isn't entirely clear to me. But basically, piece one is I'm a resource for faculty. So, I have adopted OER for my classes. I have adapted OER for my classes. I have authored OER, worked extensively with LibreTexts. And so, if you have questions, I'm happy to help at literally any step at any level. If you just need help finding OER, Michelle dropped in the chat the ASCCC OERI's webpage there. And if you go there under resources, it's got curated collections. Absolutely, by far, the best kind of first stop for anyone looking to use OER for their classes. And again, I can help you find that. There are others out there. I believe the LibGuide actually has some of those other databases in them as well. So definitely use some of these resources available. Use me. The four of us up here, we are essentially the leadership team for like OER and ZTC on this campus, or the closest thing we have to a leadership team. Use us as your resources, however we can help. So in terms of what else we're doing with the OER ZTC, program, there's just a whole bunch of kind of extra projects to really build this into a program. So early on, or earlier in this presentation, Michelle went over a lot of our ZTC pathways. You can get, for example, a communication studies degree without needing to purchase, textbooks and so on. The college doesn't market that, though. The college actually doesn't advertise that anywhere on their website. And part of that is, we got to make sure that it's a sustainable pathway that we're going to keep. But part of that is just we haven't had a program to do that, to help with that marketing, to get that figured out. So we've been meeting with marketing to develop a plan for actually, marketing ZTC pathways, ZTC courses. Campus-wide, I don't know if we had this anywhere in here, we probably should have, but campus-wide, we have about 33, about 1/3 of our sections are marked as ZTC for spring, which actually puts us kind of right in the middle of most other colleges. So, we're not at the very top. There's a few colleges that have 70+% ZTC classes, but there's some who are in the single digits still. So, was quite pleased at the number. So anyway, how do we market this, right? How do we help? If we need FTEs, this could be a way to help with that. We are working to develop a web page that would be more public facing, student facing, with some of the basics. How do you find ZTC on our campus? What is it? Those types of things. One of the concerns that I have heard from a handful of faculty out there is, they still like their students to have print copies, or they want their students to, at the very least, have easy access to print copies. It's a very complicated issue, especially given that, so for example, if you use OpenStax, the bookstore will actually work with OpenStax as a publisher to carry those. But if you don't work with if you're not using OpenStax, the bookstore will not really necessarily work with to get the other books there for print in case a student wants a print copy. And so, we're going to be working with, about 3 months ago, we started this project and started to talk with like Maria and Erwin down in print services. How do we get like a local print service, print for, I don't know, pay to print type of, or print on demand service for students. The idea would be, if there's something openly licensed that a student would rather have in print form instead of digital, there's got to be maybe a mechanism locally for us to do that for them. And then they just maybe print cost. So we're working to determine, where are the different bottlenecks for ZTC pathways. Michelle mentioned a whole bunch of different degrees, but some of those degrees hinge on one course being, appropriately ZTC. What happens if, the person who taught that course retires or whatever, so we're trying to broaden those bottlenecks. The same is true for a lot of our general ed. We do have a decent amount of general ed in each of the different areas that are zero, but we're working to identify some of those bottlenecks. So if you're wondering, where your class fits, if it doesn't fit into a program, but it's still general ed, really any class getting it to zero is going to be beneficial. But, I'm happy to help you identify where those things, might fit in the scheme of it all. And then lastly, one of the other things that we really haven't done a ton yet is engage our students. So, how do we, again, with the web page, we're going to market to them. We're going to try and be more intentional and, show them what is zero, what does it mean for something to be ZTC? How do you find that? And so on. We're going to engage with AS though, and get their help in this process. So I think that's everything. I did my best to ignore all the flashing in the chat this time. So, and Michelle, this is you.
All right, now I have to ignore the chat. Okay, so we want to talk about what it means for something to be burden-free, and in part because there is now a regulation that requires us to be moving towards burden-free. Burden-free, this idea of burden-free came about as a consequence of a committee that the Chancellor's Office put together in order to talk about how do we make everything burden-free. And basically burden-free means getting rid of all of the burdens that students currently grapple with when they are trying to succeed with us. And so first and foremost, this means not having to deal with costs and just not having to deal with things that make things harder. And when we talk about burden-free, this is a very important distinction. We're talking about the broader category of instructional materials. So ZTC and XB12 are about textbooks and homework systems and lab manuals. When we start talking about instructional materials, we're talking about those course materials plus the other supplies that students may have to purchase. And so there is work underway around trying to figure out how do we make the costs of all the things that students have to buy or that colleges are buying for students as low as possible. And then how do we find more funds to pay for those things? We kind of know what to do with homework systems and textbooks, but we have this other category where you're just not going to suddenly be able to magically create, goggles that students could use. So there's things that are necessarily more complicated. Next slide, please. So this idea of burden-free, committee out there came up with recommendations, and one of the recommendations that the committee came up with was this idea of having colleges adopt policies that were moving them towards this burden-free experience. So this came out and was chaptered over the summer when no one was around, and basically then the clock started. And by next Monday, colleges are supposed to have policies in place. And so I hate to read, but just I think this is useful here. This regulation says governing boards shall adopt policies that ensure student access to textbooks and supplemental materials that are needed on the first day of class. So a student can walk into a classroom and be ready to go. And then this regulation goes on to delineate some ways to get things to zero, such as OER and so forth. Next slide, please. And it also talks about it also emphasizes that this isn't about taking away faculty autonomy. It's still about faculty autonomy. This regulation had lots of input from the statewide academic senate. Next slide, please. So this idea around having policies in place, moving colleges towards having everything be free, is part of a broader timeline towards making things happen. So like right now, colleges are supposed to be adopting these policies and not magically making it so that come sometime after the 26th or come the summer or next term, everything's zero. It's about slowly moving in that direction over time. And the idea here is not that it's expected that we have enough money to make it happen. There's also efforts underway to secure additional funding. So in most immediate, colleges adopting policies that move us in the right direction. Colleges continue to work the work that they're already doing around OEI and expanding ZTC pathways and high enrollment programs. Something that we are hoping is going to really help with this is the system has procured a platform for OER development, basically OER everything. It's called LibreText, and the contract was just recently signed so that we'll be formally doing work with them. We've already been doing work with them. We just had a LibreText training back in December because it's already something that's widely used across the system. And over the long term, we're looking at not just getting the cost down, but finding the money to make everything burden-free as envisioned by our Board of Governors. Next slide, please. And I think it's passed off to you, Kevin. Yep.
Yeah. So what exactly are we doing with this, right? So, there was, quite a time crunch with the way all of this came through, such that really language and templates and things like that we basically use as a start off for writing all of our APs and BPs didn't come out until October. And everything, as Michelle just mentioned, is supposed to be on the books by Monday, January 26th. And so that was a really tight timeline. We are not going to make it, but we're okay with that. So where we are right now is that the OER committee basically looked over some draft language, approved it, sent it to the Academic Senate, who also approved it. And now it is kind of sitting at Policy and Procedure Council's doorstep, waiting for them to take it up. From there, it goes to Planning and Fiscal Council. And from there, it'll go to the board. And of course, there are likely edits right along the way. So I just want to share with you a little bit of the language, from these. So Mike, if you can go ahead. There we go. So again, because this is all about burden-free first day access, removing barriers and things of that sort. One of the things that these procedures, policies are really trying to do is to, provide guidance and specifics on how districts can do these things. And this list actually came from the OERI, which again is the group that Michelle Pilates is heading, and a lot of the suggestions that they put forth. So, and our committee loved them, Senate loved them. So here's what we've got. So if we look at kind of the inner bullets here, developing procedures that enable early financial aid disbursements. Because, right, if you are still going to need to pay for books or pay for materials, the earlier you get financial aid, the less of a burden, right, it will be hopefully to purchase said materials. And the third bullet here is along similar lines as well, just getting earlier financial aid applications and stuff like that. The second bullet, enhance and utilize lending programs to support immediate access to course materials. So this is going to be, right, your circulation, your reserves desk and things of that sort. We're really hoping that when we do our print services and when we have some like a pay to print, that will actually help our library procure some print copies of some of the OER that we have for their reserve desk, and we can just internally print it. Developing processes that encourage faculty to support and adopt OER. OER is largely absent from all of our APs and BPs. Actually, our board had never even been briefed on OER until a month and a half ago, something like that, with the December meeting. And so these things have, like I said, largely been absent. So trying to get these into some of those documents, processes, procedures, and things of that sort. If you can go ahead, Mike. So again, right, developing processes that encourage and too far. There we go. That encourage and support faculty to create OER, to adopt it, and so on. And then the last two here, we kind of the Senate and OER committee really wanted to add in there. Because, like I said, since OER and zero ZTC and all of that is largely absent from all of our APs and BPs, where else could we put it? So we added in stuff about course schedules and being able to have all of these things clearly marked and searchable. And then the last bullet here is about digital content in print format, which is again is something we're working on. So really, the AP, like I said, this is totally draft language. It could very well change. It is likely to change. But I just wanted to share that with you all so that you are aware of what is going on. So on that note, that is kind of all the stuff that we had prepared for you. We do have, plenty of time here. So if you need to go in and do your XB12 data, the link is in the chat, I believe. Mike just put that in there. If you have questions, comments, anything, I know that we have had a fairly active chat about some, throughout some of this, but feel free to unmute yourself or throw more stuff in the chat. We are here for the next 15 to 20 minutes to help. So, and if you don't have any questions and you're kind of done with it, enjoy an early lunch.